Some people think it's 18. Some people say, no, it was 85 was the first one over here. And I know it started over in Spinney Field even earlier than that. So somewhere along the line, we got quite a number of people that we've put this on for. And it's grown into what you see here today. And we have a lot of fun doing this. These guys are my friends. Okay, these guys are my friends. They come down here. We don't make any money on this clinic. All this stuff goes back to them. They get shirts, they get yo-yos, last year I gave them a slinky. They loved it. They had nothing to do. They can play with their slinky. But this year, we have another fine cast. We had Jimmy Bowman, who did a great job last night. You guys were here listening to Jimmy. Andy Moeller did another fine job last night. And Tim Davis at USC, who's now with the Miami Dolphins. And I'm going to miss some guys, but today's speakers will be Bill Laveroni, Seattle Seahawks, Steve Marshall, who's been coming to this clinic forever, with Stevie became invisible. Okay. Pat Flaherty, again, another one of the guys that come up through the ranks. Now a line coach with the New York Giants. He's sat in these seats for many years. Paul Boudreau, Jacksonville. Some of you guys may have heard Paul before. He's up here. I've known Paul for 30 years. Okay, Rush Grimm, the Steelers. He'll be the last guy on today. We have other guys in the audience that you guys will see walking around. Paul Alexander, he was up here last night organizing last night. We have Bob Savage, he's with the Bengals. Again, he works with Paul. Andy Heck here works with Paul Boudreau at Jacksonville. Alfredo Roberts is the tight end coach over here. You guys get any of these guys and you want any information, you can see them, take them out back, ask them anything you want. They'll be glad to help you. Andy may charge you, but that's okay. Okay. Dan DeRazio, I saw Dan here, British Columbia, Canadian Football League. I may miss somebody. If I do, I apologize. Okay. Now, some rules if you guys have been, this is your first year here. This is the first year here. Okay, we have some rules. Oh, excuse me, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring some of the guys that I work with at Syracuse. There's Tim Cross in the back there. And Steve Russ. Steve's back over here. Okay, Steve coaches the linebackers and Tim coaches the defensive line. We also have Will Hicks, our strength coach here, and Reggie Terry, our director of football operations, is here. Okay, now there's some rules. No talking. If you guys have ever been up here, okay, and this is the toughest one to speak at. This is the toughest clinic to come to and speak as a line coach because you can't bullshit anybody. Okay? You got to be on top of your game when you're on this stage right here. Because everybody, okay, is coaching the same position. Okay? You have to prepare like you've been making a game plan when you're coming up here to work this clinic. So this is one of the toughest things to do is to speak in front of your peers here. When you got wide receiver coach, what the fuck do they know, right? Okay, quarterback coaches, secondary coaches, all that shit, that's kind of, okay? When you got all offensive line coaches, it ain't no bullshit anymore. Okay? Oh, I missed Pat Morris. Pat Morris is here from the Detroit Lions. I know I would miss somebody. So if you see Pat walking around, grab him. He's been here for many years, too. Okay, so there'd be no talking. No smoking. You want to smoke, go outside. I don't care if you smoke, go outside. Okay? I'm going to blow a whistle. When I blow the whistle, okay, I'm going to give you a break at 11 o'clock. We're going to go two speakers. We're going to go Bill Laveroni and Steve Marshall. Bill's going to talk about Seattle's screen game. Seattle's one of the best screen teams in the league. Steve's going to talk about the backside blocking and the problems you have on the zone plays. Okay, they do a great job down there in Texas running that play. Okay, then you're going to take a break. It'll be about 11 o'clock. When I want you to get back in your seat, I'm going to blow the whistle. You get your asses back in your seat, just like you blow the whistle on the football field and your players move from drill to drill. Well, you move back and get back in your seat again. So we're all on the same page. Does anybody have any questions? Now, this morning's structure is going to be similar to what we had last night. We sat down, Paul and myself and some of the speakers, and what we'll do is I'll let them speak, okay, until 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes before they're done, and we'll stop it. And we'll have that little question and answer period like we had last night for that one guy. Okay? Then we'll bring up the next guy, and we'll do the same thing. So if you guys have questions and answers, they'll answer them for you here. And then we'll go to the next speaker when that's completed, and we'll continue on. Any questions with any of that stuff? Okay, now, somebody was gracious enough. Oh, next year's clinic is going to be, write this down, next year's clinic, now it's going to be in the bigger ballroom on the other side. We had to give it up for somebody's getting married over there, so I did the guy a favor. I'm not sure I did the guy a favor or not. I told the guy for $25 I'd talk him out of getting married, but be May 19th and 20th. May 19th and 20th, 2006. Okay? And then somebody left a checkbook for me. I wish I had my glasses on. Jason, and I believe you pronounced it, Jason and Amy Linder, Lindaauer. Are they here? Is he here? Jason? How much money is left in his checking account? Because I got your checkbook up here. If there's enough, I'm going to keep the son of a bitch. If there's not, I'm going to give it back to you. Okay, come and get it. So I'll have it over here on the table for you. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to bring up Bill Laveroni from the Seattle Seahawks. Bill started at Utah State. Let me see if I got this right. Cal Berkeley, West Coast. Okay, and he came all the way over. You're welcome. Then he came all the way over and went to Rutgers and did the East Coast deal, Rutgers Vanderbilt. Okay, and he got on with the Seattle Seahawks under Tom Lovat. Now, most of the guys that work with Tom Lovat are now head coaches in the football league. Am I correct? Is that correct? Andy Reid worked with Tommy. He's now the head coach at the Eagles. Right? Sherman worked with Tom. He's now the head coach. John Gruden worked with Tom. John is now the head coach at Tampa Bay. And so I expect that Bill, okay, will now be a head coach someday in the league. I don't know where it's going to be, but someday he's going to be a head coach in the league. But anyway, he's going to talk about Seattle's screen game. If you guys studied pro football, Seattle is one of the best screen teams. Okay, when Holmgren was at Green Bay and they went to Seattle, they took all the screens with them. They've been one of the best screen teams in the league for a long, long time. So he's going to talk about the screen game. Okay, Bill Laveroni, Seattle Seahawks. What happens? They can't hear back of the phone.
Right there's all right.
Got it?
Okay. Everybody can hear me? First of all, it's really great to be here. I'm real fortunate to be up in front and talking to you guys because I was sitting back there listening to the speakers many times a few years ago. And Bob, the first time I came to the clinic, Bob went through the same ritual. And he blew that whistle, and Bob woke me up one time. He said, "Get your asses up and sit up in the chair and listen and let's go." So this is really a tremendous clinic for offensive line coaches and for all of us. I mean, it doesn't matter what level you're at. This is, there's so much information that goes along, and I'm sure you guys have talked to each other and talked about different things. Last night, just listen to Jim talk from Ohio State. You pick up one or two little ideas, and I said to myself, that's a good point or coaching point. I'm going to go back and look at our tape and see if I can incorporate his ideas into what we do. I have coached at every level. I was a high school coach. I've coached in junior college. I coached in arena football, and I coached in college. And I'm very fortunate to be in the NFL. And Coach Holmgren talks to us all the time about the staff, and he says, you guys are really, really privileged to be coaching in the NFL. And he said you should appreciate it. And I do appreciate it. I'm very fortunate. But more importantly, to be around some of the coaches I've been around in the NFL. Just last night, the dinner we had last night with the guys, I was saying to myself, man, there's some phenomenal teachers and coaches in the NFL. And you guys, I'm sure, have come across phenomenal coaches and teachers. I'm going to talk today about the screen game. And I know there is a million ways to skin the cat. And probably every facet of our coaching and the offensive line, everybody has a way of doing a certain technique, a certain skill, a certain play. Andy Moeller and those guys talking about the power play. Really interesting how Jim pulls his guard one way and for example, Paul Alexander at the Cincinnati Bengals pulls it another way. That there is not one way and the only way. When coach said, hey, this is the only way you can run the power play, for you younger coaches, that's not the way it is. I know because I went through it myself. I used to hear guys that said, man, this is it. I'm going to run the power play this way, and this is the way we're going to do it. In the same vein, talking about the screens, it's when I was fortunate enough to join the Seattle Seahawks staff 3 years ago, I worked for Tom Lovat, who just retired about a year ago. And Tom is a hell of a football coach. He's been through the whole ranks, high school coach, college head coach, was in the NFL for 24 years, retired last year. And I was very fortunate because I could pick his brain. I watched him for 2 years. And then I was fortunate enough to become the line coach when Tom retired. And there were a lot of things that Tom talked about the screen game that I wrote down, and that he said he had grown up with Mike Holmgren in the screen game, and there's ways that we run the screen at Seattle, and we really believe in it. And so I copied notes. I really studied it. Hopefully I tried to carry on what Tom had instituted with Seattle Seahawks prior to my getting there. And so it's ironic that I'm speaking about the screen games because every year in the springtime, Coach Holmgren gives us projects to do. And in our projects, we have a project called our Scheme Evaluation Project. And what we do is we break down every facet of the offense, and each coach has a specific areas that he has to evaluate, watch the film of our offense, study it, give him statistics, give him a summary of what we think was good, what was bad. And so I have the running game. We went through that. And then I have sacks, which is always painful to go through. And then, we have all different areas. Well, one of our coaches, Nolan Cromwell, has the screen game. Well, the first thing he said is we had our meeting. This was last Wednesday. He says, Coach, our screens were not as good as they have been last year. Oh, man. And Coach Holmgren really hit the hair on the back of his neck went up, and he was pissed. And he said, this is something I believe in. This is something we did with the 49ers under Coach Walsh. This is the way we did it in Green Bay. And he says, God damn it. Let's get this damn thing squared away. So I want to tell you that we're not perfect. And you're going to see some things that we do on tape, and you're going to say, they're not executing exactly as the paper or as a coach might have said. We constantly have to keep coaching that area. And just like anything, when you emphasize something as a coach, you get better at it. You just do. And so we're going to go back in our next mini camp in June, and we're going to really emphasize our screen game and try to really be very detailed about the aspects of the screen from square one to square 21. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about some of our thoughts on the screen game. I'm going to show you some tape. I'm going to show you a couple of drills we do. And then, like Bob said, if you have some questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I don't know if you guys can see this. We'll try and get this as large as I can. Probably can't, but what I'll do is I'll just talk to you about each area here. Okay. All right, these are some thoughts that we've talked about, and I've been involved in with our staff meetings. And the first thing that Tom and I talked about, and Tom was excellent. He said, when you talk about the screens, keep it simple with your players and the entire offense, okay? Don't overcoach the screen. Now what happens, and you guys probably all know this, dealing with head coaches, when they have a little deal that's their baby, and they really believe in it, when you start practicing screens, boy, everybody starts, especially if it hasn't been as successful as it normally is, everybody jumps in. The head coach jumps in, the quarterback coach jumps in, the wide receiver coach jumps in, and pretty soon, instead of just making it very simple, everybody's talking about, okay, now we're going to get cover 2 or cover 9. That corner's going to roll up. Now the guard, and Coach Holmgren will jump right in and he'll say, guard, I want you to block that corner. And it sounds very easy. But what happens is, okay, now what happens when it's not cover 9? Or what happens when it's fire zone? You know, there's so many different variables that come into the screen game, and that's what happens. I think we all, as coaches, you know, you like to be line coaches. I know we all like to have rules, and we all like to say, hey, this is what's going to happen, to tell your guard or center or tackle, and when that happens, you're going to do this. But I believe this, and Tom and I used to talk about it a lot. The screens, what happens during a screen does not happen the same way for every screen. It changes every time you run a screen. And so the starting point, I think, for screens is keep it simple, coach it with a real simple manner, and then adjust and work on the different variations that occur in practice with your players. Okay, use the formation that we throw our best route patterns. When we put in a screen, we will put in screens that really match the routes that we throw a lot of, okay? And I think it's been really good because we can run screens from all our protections, and we can run screens with various different routes that we have, route packages. So if we run the shallow cross a lot, we'll run a screen off the shallow cross. We get in two backs and in a red set, split set, we'll run a certain route with the tight end, an option route, we'll run a screen off that route. There are times during the season where we'll say, okay, they're really overplaying this route. They're very vulnerable to running the screen, so let's put the screen in and run our screen. And the reason we can do it, and I'll get to it in a few minutes here, the reason we can do it is the system of our screens are very consistent. So as I'm speaking of the line now, it's very consistent, and so the teaching part is really not a magical change for the offensive lineman. So it's very flexible that way. But route patterns and try to keep your screens consistent with the routes that you throw. Try to incorporate that into your screen game. I think that's really important, because those corners or those secondary people, they see that route and they're running across the field. They're trying to slam the shallow cross, and they're jumping that route. They're not even thinking screen. And that's the first part of it. I think it's really important. We are not we're not a slow screen team. By that I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys, and myself as well, fellows, I grew up with screens, and you know, I think screens are kind of like, sometimes with offensive coordinators, they're kind of like an afterthought. Okay, we'll run this screen, we'll run this conventional screen and go with it. And what happens is you're not allowed to really broaden your screen package. And then what happens is if you coach, like I said earlier, okay, guards, you're going to go out and you're blocking the force player who's going to be the corner. Okay, and then all of a sudden what happens, that's not the force player, it's the inside linebacker. And then all of a sudden the screen gets muddled up. And then what happens is the offensive coordinator or the play caller all of a sudden says, we don't have enough time to devote to the screens. So my point to you is that our screens are fast screens, and I think it's really, I think it's a good aspect of our screens that they are fast and our timing of it, everybody is on the same page. The back, the quarterback, and the releasers are all on the same page. And so the more they do it, and we do it a lot in practice, we practice that timing part of it, I think having the fast screen aspect, and by that I mean the back, he doesn't count 1001, 1002, 1000, then release. We're not like that. It's a lot quicker than that, and you'll see that what I'm talking about. I would say we're at the most 1001 without go. That's how it is. And we don't. And I won't even get into the counting because that's another interesting aspect. Tom used to tell me, and it's true. Everybody says 1001, 1002, 1003 differently. They do. And so what happens is the back's out first, and the line isn't out, or the one guard's out first, and the rest of the releasers aren't out. So we practice it, and it's really predicated. The back is really predicated on releasing. His focal point is the offensive guard. When the guard releases, or if the center gets out first, then he'll move on the center's release as well. Because we don't make it an adamant rule that the guard has to be the first releaser. Because things change once the ball snapped. You get line stunts, you get blitzes or something, and the guard isn't the first guy out. That's another aspect that I think is, you coach the screen and you say, okay, it's like ducks on a pond, Huey, Dewey, and Louie. You know, when Huey leaves, Dewey leaves. When Dewey leaves, you know, Louis leaves. Okay. Well, it doesn't always end up that way because of what happens after the ball is snapped. I'm going to show you a clip of our screen drill. We have a drill. We have two drills really that we work on, and one is a team concept screen drill. I think that's really important because, as I talked to you earlier, when we run the screens, our receivers run certain routes, and when they start the route, and then they have a blocking assignment, whether it be a linebacker or a safety. They don't just run their routes and just continue running when the screens start. They start their routes, they start to work back inside or work a skinny post, and then they have the timing down themselves, and then they become a blocker. So they're a part of the screen as well as the releasers and as well as the offensive line as well as the running backs. So the wide receivers are also involved in the screen play. They don't just, you know, run a fade route and just look back at the screen. Now, some of the route packages, we do incorporate a fade route. And some of them, some like say the X receiver, we would say, hey, you are going to run a fade, and you try to push the corner, or you try to push the safety, and then once that safety looks back, peeks back, then you become a blocker. We do incorporate that, but especially on our crossing routes, any of our crossing routes, or an option route with the tight end that we start, the tight end will start his option route. That Mike linebacker sometimes wants to jump it, and then that tight end will become a blocker once he gets up the field and displays that option route. As I talked to you earlier, we start out with a rule, okay? We start with a rule, but it's not a concrete rule. By that I mean our guys know, our guys have been involved. It's, you know, you're fortunate when you have guys that are veterans, but I think, again, go back to that first axiom that I just talked about. By keeping your screen system and your concept very simple, I think that's a very important ingredient to the success of screens. So, but going back to what I was just saying, we have some veteran guys, and they understand the initial concept. If everything was perfect in a screen, you'd like to get the guard out first. You'd like to get the center out second. We do not release our backside guard. We keep him, and he's involved in the protection. I'll get to that in a minute. But you'd like to get them out, and you'd like that guard, ideally, if everything was perfect, you'd like him to block the force guy. You'd like the guard to turn up inside our reference point and block the next defender. Most of the time, it's a linebacker, and away we go with the screen. You guys all know that. But as we talk about the screen, after the ball is snapped, there are so many things that happen. Line stunts. The guard gets bumped. He doesn't get off in time. Fire zones. Instead of the corner being a force guy, it's the 290-pound defensive end that's running to the flat. You know, so all those things that happen or can happen, it's not a perfect world. And the more you can make your screen concepts simple, then the guard comes out, or the center, whoever's out first, and he just gets on that fire zone end. Hell, that's the first defender that's forcing from the outside in. Don't make it a big deal. Okay. I'm very fortunate. I have a 15-year center and a 14-year guard that when on the right, the guard's on the right guard, and then the left guard is a young man named Steve Hutchison from Michigan, who is a tremendous player. But my point on communication, our guys will release, as they release along the line of scrimmage, they will be talking to each other as they're on the run. They'll be saying, I got him, or they'll point it out. They actually will point out who they're blocking, because sometimes what happens is if the releaser, the first releaser starts to go along the line of scrimmage and he feels threatened by a linebacker, he may block that guy. And the center will go right past him and end up blocking the force man. So what happens is your releasers, just because you have a starting point as the first releaser is trying to block the force and the second releaser is trying to block the inside linebacker, based on what happens after the ball is snapped, that changes, as I've said. So now the guard, as he starts to release, he may just point or get onto the linebacker. So there's communication going on there on the run between the releasers. And I think that's okay. That's really good. And I think you should encourage that. Don't be afraid not to either point or communicate on the run as you're running. Sometimes the center will be behind him. He'll say, go, 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 which means go block the force guy. I'll take the linebacker because he's in a leverage position where I can block him. You get to the force man. Now, one of the pet peeves of Coach Holmgren, and he gets the red ass quickly, is he says, I don't want releasers double teaming. Don't double team defenders. And he's right. Don't double team defenders. But again, we're talking about things change as the ball snap, and you can't rant and rave your center and guard when all of a sudden they get out there and two defenders are running at opposite, or similar angles, and all of a sudden, at the split second, these guys are trying to make decisions and they end up doubling a guy. It happens, okay? And there's sometimes they end up doubling and the defensive guy runs right into the double team and the back still keeps running for a big play. I guess I'm going back to that. Don't overcoach it. Don't overcoach it. Don't start ranting and raving about it, because if that happens, then when they get out, they'll be so like in line that they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to run past this guy to get to that guy." How many guys have seen that happen in a screen? They'll run past the guy, and that guy will make the tackle, and then the offensive coordinator says, "I'm not running that shitty play ever again." You put that in the can. So I think there's one thing I learned from Tom. And that was, don't overcoach that screen. Let those guys, you're going to have to take abuse from your head coach, and you're going to have to take abuse from your offensive coordinator when those little instances happen that you end up doubling a guy or a releaser doesn't get out. Okay, I think another ingredient that we utilize, and I think it's really a great ingredient. Paul Boudreau, we were laughing about this last night, but it's true, we use it, is we give our releasers, we give them a reference point on the field. Okay? Now, our numbers and our hash marks are different than college, and when I heard this a few years ago from Tom, it really hit home with me. It really did. And so what we use as a reference point are the numbers on the field. And so the running back, the releasers, the wide receivers, they all know where that back will turn up the field if all things are equal, if everything is the way we'd like it. And so that reference point, so when I'm a releaser, whether it's the center first or the guard first, as I release, I know I'm not going to get any wider than the numbers if I'm not threatened. Okay, so a reference point, and I think that's really good. Now, college numbers and hash marks are different. So what I would advise you to do is go out and find a reference point on the field, all right, that you think is close to what we use. And then what happens is that running back can, as he gets that ball quickly, he knows exactly, he doesn't run all the way out to the sideline and all of a sudden get tackled because your guard or center had blocked the guy that's a little bit tighter. He'll know where that crease is. And we talk about running down the yellow brick road or running down the highway. Tom would tell those releasers, hey, I don't want you drifting way out there past the number. You go down the number. If no one threatens you, you're down the numbers. And the running back knows, Sean knows, Alexander, that if he gets the ball, he's not going to, if he gets to the numbers, he's down the numbers. Now again, it's going back to that axiom again. You can't demand that running back, hey, don't make that cut and run 80 yards because you're outside the yellow brick road. Don't be, but this is a starting point, and I think you really try to coach that and keep it as close as you can, understanding that after the ball is snapped, the defense changes, and it also affects the running back as well. One of the areas Coach Holmgren and our the defenses in the NFL know that, but it's been a tremendous play in the red zone. The red zone is a great time to be calling screens. It is a great place to be calling screens. With our pass offense and our philosophy in the red zone, trying to throw the football into the end zone, we get a varied types of coverages, but a lot of them a lot of people play more zone down there than anything, and that's really what is most ideal when you're trying to run screens, is running it against zone coverages. And so it's been a very effective tool for our offense. You get that secondary push deep. You get those linebackers trying to take the underneath routes away, and you tend to get a 4-man rush. Sometimes you get a 5-man rush, and more often in that area, at least we do, okay? But I think, when you look at college film and you look at, and when I was, I know as a high school coach, man, they get in that red zone. Those defensive guys want to be a little, sometimes they're aggressive and they come after you, but they want to defend. And if they want to defend, it's ideal for the screens. And again, what's good about our screens is the speed of our screen. It's not a delayed screen. We get the ball to the receiver, and he can catch the ball and turn up the field. And it's been very successful for us in the red zone area. So I would encourage you to try to go back and talk to your offensive coordinator and say, hey, one of the areas of the field that it is really ideal is in that red zone area. Okay, one of the areas that I think has been real difficult for linemen to be successful in the screen area is, as a releaser, what is the angle that you release and take prior to your attacking your blocking assignment. And we talk about straight line releasers. By that I mean, don't start to release and fade down or upfield. Now, in the NFL, we have to be on the line of scrimmage when a ball is thrown. We can't be downfield like you can be in college. But even if I was back in college coaching, I would coach that straight line of course, because what happens more often than not is, and happened to our rookies in minicamp just a couple of weeks ago, the guard starts to drift, and what happens is that whoever the force player, whether it's an end, whether it's a linebacker, whether it's a safety, whether it's a corner, as they take that angle or that departure angle to make that tackle, those linemen, as they start drifting up the field, you can't get in a proper angle to make that block. It's going to be a trap block in more instances than anything, and if you're drifting up the field, you're not going to get that angle. Now, we can't do that in the NFL because it's a penalty, but even still, young linemen tend to they want to get downfield, and especially in college or high school, do not let them drift downfield until they get to that reference point. Then we say, hey, okay, now you can start the motor and turn down the field. But I think that's really important part of the screen. How many times have you seen that guy release, and I say, oh, we got a hell of a screen, and that guy goes running right by him and tackles the back because his course is so far up the field. So really emphasize the straight line release for your releasers, and I think you'll have great success with the screens. Another thought. Now, in our screens, if they are blitzing us, we're not going to necessarily check off the screen. We'll run the screen. And again, it can be a hell of a play against a blitz, okay? And you'd say, well, you're going to get, you could get outnumbered. Again, I go back to the fact that it is a fast screen. It is not a delay screen. Our quarterback knows. Most oftentimes, our quarterback and our line and the backs realize, hey, we are getting pressure here, so let's go with our count and go. Or I should say, let's go with our release and go. And lots of times we throw in big play screens against blitzing teams. And if you can hit one of your screens against a blitzing team, especially a fire zone type of defense, okay? Especially a fire zone type of defense where that defensive end is backing off and you're getting a fire zone to the strong side and you're releasing with a weak side screen, it'll be a gigantic play because, again, that defensive end, when he's out in space, he's not a good defender, and that's an ideal situation to run. And our backs understand that they still have a blocking assignment initially. They have to get into that blocking assignment, but they also know they don't sit there and stone that outside linebacker and go 1,001, 1,002 while everybody's coming upfield. So, again, you have to practice the timing. You have to practice. That's another, goes back to, there's another situation when you're practicing a screen, a blitzing situation, And I know all of you guys have had situations where you called a screen and they call a blitz and all hell breaks loose. You can run screens against a blitz, but you've got to practice those different situations that occur in a game when you run your screens. Fire zone blitz, just like I said, even if it's a single backer or double backer blitz, practice those situations. Your quarterback will feel more comfortable. and your line will feel more comfortable, and it'll make you much more efficient. Okay. Is there any questions? Are there any questions? I know there's a question and answer at the end. Yeah, Paul.
I do have a question. I know Mike's committed to this, makes it a better place for you. He's got a good job coaching. How do you get the defense and their kids practicing the right way without peeling off and fucking up the screen?
One of the drills we do, Paul, to answer that, and I'm going to show you a clip of it, and I'm going to diagram. We actually, fellas, in the NFL, a lot of you guys think we actually service ourselves. We have a lot of drills that we actually service ourselves, because there are not enough players. We're not like in college where you have 85 players. You have 53, and you have to service yourself, I guess is what I'm telling Paul. And one of the drills we do is we get our offensive personnel. We put our quarterback back in safety, and we put our corners. And the first thing I talk to, Paul, are those defensive linemen who are all offensive linemen. I say, hey, look and we actually, in our team meeting, when we come in with like a mini camp, and we're going to run our screen drill, I'll get up and I'll actually diagram the screen drill, and I'll show our offense. I'll say, now you guys on defense, when we have everybody's name, we put their name, we put the yellow bonnet, the different colored bonnets, you're going to see that on their helmet, and we coach those guys as hard as we coach the screen, because Paul's right, you get frustrated, and the drill looks like it just goes to shit. If it does, the head coach gets pissed. But we really try to coach those guys like hell. Say, hey, we're going to run our slow screen, our weak slow screen. Now, defensive end, here's what I want you to do. We're going to run a TE stunt, and I want the tackle. I want you to give me a good look. You're going to go and try and pick the tackle, and I want the looper coming. So my point is, the drill that we run, we really coach up those guys, and we demand those guys to give us a great look. It's obviously not as fast as what we see from the defense. And when we work with the defense, you can't work. You got to work full speed with the defense. They don't want to. They'll get pissed and say, I'm just acting like a dummy for you guys. So we're not, But what happens is that drill is really beneficial. And so you high school coaches, I would really encourage you, coach your defense. I think you as an offensive coach, when you have a drill, a group drill or a team drill, you need to coach those show team guys harder than you coach the guys that you're running the drill for. I really believe that. Don't be afraid to do that. Get on the defensive side, and they'll appreciate it too. And then if you have it on tape, you'll be able to really coach it better. And if you don't have it on tape, the offensive people will get a better look. So going back to that, I would really encourage you to coach your guys on defense as well as you can. But that's what we do. And then what we do is we actually have cards. We go through the cards. We give them the different looks. Okay. Now that's a team concept. So we'll roll the corner, and we'll play too deep, or we'll invert the safety, and he's going to be the force man, and we'll drop the corner. Then we'll fire zone. We'll give him a fire zone, and the end will drop off. And then we'll play man coverage, and that guard, when he releases, that inside linebacker, we coach him. You jump that back right now, so that guard's got to pick that guy, peel that guy off the back. So we try to do it that way. Another way we do it with just the offensive line is what I'll do is I'll put up just the two bags. And they'll give me, either I'll have the corner have the bag and a linebacker, or I'll have the corner and the safety, and I'll have the safety come down, and then we'll work on just the releases with a back, not even worried about anybody else's position, and just so we can get the timing and the recognition on the run, which I think is really the recognition on the run by those releasers is so critical to the success of a screen. And then the back, having a feel for who's forcing. I know who's gonna trap that forcer, and who's gonna block the fill guy. And so we do. Those are the two drills that we really emphasize a lot. For example, and I'll show you this, and then. But I think you can be creative, and your offensive line coaches. Most of the time we're working against ourselves. You demand it from those guys. Now I want that defensive end. Tell that guy, you got to help this tackle. So give him a good look. And then emphasize whatever you're doing. Make sure your players know, prior to going out in the field, I think it's really important. I really appreciate it, and I don't know if I ever did it as much as we do it at Seattle, is we actually prepare our guys for all the drills, any team drills that we're going to do. We show them transparencies of everything we're going to do. And so some people may say, well, how do they, they're not going to know what's going to happen to the defense prior to running the screen in a game. Why would you do it in practice? Because I think it's like a double learning situation. It's a teaching. I think it's a great way to teach. Go ahead and show them. Okay, this first snap, we're going to give you a TE on the screen. The second snap, and we go through the transparencies, and everybody's in there. And what happens is you go out in the drill, and the drill, first of all, is run smooth because you've already coached the defense in your meeting. And then secondly, the learning process is, I think, it speeds up. It really accelerates the learning process of the understanding of whatever you're trying to emphasize, whether it's screens, whether it's the off tackle, the power play, whatever it is. Lots of times as a line coach, I used to say, I'll just spring it on them, and you've talked about it in your meeting, but you really don't really illustrate exactly what you want in the drill. So, and here's kind of, I don't know if you guys can see that. I got some cut-up tapes of this, but for example, very, very vanilla. These two guys would be the bag holders. And what we do is we say, okay, we're going to give an even front. And now, Buck, here's what I want you to do. Here's the way I want you to react. And the corner, here's how I want you to react. Now, we put receivers out there, okay, and our receiver coach, Coach Cromwell, does a great job. He coaches those guys. This is the reaction I want once you see the screen. And if you do this drill more than once, if you do it, they understand it. They understand what their role is in the success of teaching this drill. And they give us a pretty good look. Is it as fast as it gets? No, it's not. It's not. But again, we're talking about a teaching drill, and we're talking about progression. And then what we'll do is we'll get the front. We change the fronts up because I'll get into the rules of our screens, but we'll change the front up. And now we'll cover the center with some sort of an over front, okay? And now we'll have an inverted safety. And sometimes we'll run the screens to the strong side. We'll practice the drill. And obviously we're going to run the screens to the weak side. And as I get into what the rules are for the line, you'll see that to us, it doesn't change whether it's a strong side or it's a weak side screen. And that's what I really appreciate about the Seahawks screen game. The teaching time is really lessened for the offensive line, and the repetitions become, we get more repetitions, and then those different idiosyncrasies that happen after the ball snap, they see it faster, and they adjust. And so that part, which I think is the hardest part of the screen, it becomes easier and easier for them. Okay, and then we'll get an under front, and we'll bring the free safety down. And how many times, you get that 8-man front, and all of a sudden, there's the force guy, and that whip jumps, that guy jumps that back. And so now, who's out first? Maybe it's the center, so the center ends up blocking the free safety, and the guard adjusts and blocks the inside backer. So I think this drill, and I guarantee you, after our meeting with the head man on Wednesday, we are definitely going to have this drill in our mini camp. We're going to spend a 10-minute drill on this, and we're going to coach it. And then I'm going to spend another at least one or two, probably 2 times in our mini camps working on that drill I was telling you, Paul, and just making it a very simple drill, but yet, again, repetitions, and then changing the look at the point of attack. Okay. Now, what I'll do is, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go through and just kind of talk to you about the rules and some emphasis that we make with our players and some coaching points. Now, right there at the top of the screen, I don't know, again, you probably can't see this very well. I'm sorry for that. I really am. But you'll see that we have, it says all screens will be run on a 2 count. Okay, well, we really don't, again, I tell the line, we don't count 1001, 1002. We have a coaching term that we use, and I always go back to that on the field when when I'm coaching those guys. We talk about hit, extend, and release. Now, if that's 1001, 1002, so be it. But we don't count. We talk about hit, extend, and release. Now, I won't get into our pass protection technique because we don't have time. But we're fairly aggressive, a pass protection team. We're not a, everybody does it differently. That's the way we do it. So when we talk about hit, really what we're trying to do is we're going to give them a short set right on the line of scrimmage, and then we're going to use our hand levers and collision. So that's extend and then release. So if I'm the guard and I have a 3 technique, I am going to use my pass protection technique, make it as close to what we do on a normal pass protection situation, and we're going to jam that guy good, and then we're just going to let him release. The other thing that we do, and it pisses the defensive people off, and I'm sure Paul, all the line coaches will appreciate this. You know, I think it was about 3 years ago, you know, the officials came in and they said, you know, we're going to start looking. Our guys, what they do is they hit, extend, and sometimes they'll just yank the defensive just throw his ass. You know, and there's lots of time you'll see defensive guys going into the ground, and so about 3 years ago, the officials said we're going to be looking for that offensive holding when they try and grab the guy. So again, what happened? Our whole staff said, oh, we got to be careful doing that. And myself, as I was thinking, I said, I'm not going to overcoach that, because again, all of a sudden you say, well, don't do that. And you'll see it's really effective, and it doesn't get called. I mean, those officials don't call it. You know, and we actually hit, extend, and if that defensive lineman's slow getting up the field, which that's another area, you know, you can't control how fast he's a pass rusher. And so sometimes our center, he'll just grab that guy and just throw him, you know. Now, I don't think you'll get it called. I really don't, because they're not looking at that. They're starting to look, I'm speaking to the officials, they're looking at other things. And we haven't got it called. Now, probably after I say this, next year it'll get called and it'll get my ass just ripped. If you see the head coach coming down the sidelines, Coach Holmgren, you know he's a big man, and he comes walking down the sidelines. I'm in the corner there, and he'll just bend over. You won't see that he's motherfucking me and the line, but he is. I guarantee you, he is. He'll say, what in the fuck are we doing? But anyhow, it's hit, extend, and go. Okay? It's hit, extend, and go. And that's what I talked to him about. We did it when Tom was there, and again, you know, don't say, you know, how many times you talked about screens, and I can remember just going, 1,001, 1,002, you know, and all of a sudden the guard's gone, and center, can't you count to 1,002 or 1,003? Yeah, I am, coach. Well, he's going 1,001, 1,002, and so it's hit, extend, and go, okay? The onside tackle, we tell, now these, what I'm talking to you about here, these coaching points, it doesn't matter what screens, it doesn't matter what type of protection screen we call. This is what we do as an offensive line on all our screens, So what I'm telling you is that's what I think is another advantage to our screen game. We don't overcoach it. We don't give them okay, it's 2-jet protection, so on this protection, when we run the slow screen, to the strong side, we do, this is our rule. And then when we run 24 protection, weak, this is our technique. We don't do that. Hey, that's what's, I appreciate it, because, you know, during the season, we'll say, oh, hey, let's put our weak side screen with this package. Okay, let's put, you know, all the spaghetti-o guys that are putting all those routes on the boards and everything like that, and they say, oh yeah, let's add this screen. So, okay, that's fine. And then when I go with the fellows, I just say, okay, we're going to run out of 70 protection, we're going to run slow screen weak. You know, and they go, fine, okay, let's go. We're on to the next thing. So there's not a lot, and I really appreciate that. I think Tom did a great job of developing that aspect of the screen. The onside guard, okay. If you're covered, and you're going to hit, extend, and release. Obviously, ideally, if I'm releasing to the right, I want that defensive player to go through my right shoulder and release up the field. Okay? But as you well know, you know, you're not in charge of where he goes. So, but that is our starting point. So if I have a 3 technique, as I hit and extend there, I'd love to have him come up the field. If he doesn't, as I start to take my set and he has some sort of a hard slant charge, there's some sort of a game, again, our guard will hit and extend, and he releases him, he becomes a soft setter, I guess. Now, that doesn't mean he sets back off the line of scrimmage. He's still going to hit, he's still going to extend, he just understands that he's got to release to the right, and so he's not going to stop that guy totally and stop him on the line of scrimmage. Our guys have a great feel for you don't want that releaser, you know, when you hit and extend, you don't want to stop his momentum. I mean, excuse me, the defensive lineman. You don't want him to stop totally. You want him getting up the field. So, so as you do that, you talk to them, and they understand that. And again, it's just not overcoaching that aspect of the screen. Okay, if you're an uncovered lineman, okay, we do not, if we have, and this was something that, Tom had been with Coach Holmgren so long that Tom had a great way when the screen game started to come up, and Paul and all you guys, you'll appreciate this. Mike would say, okay, now we're running two-jet screen. Now, we're blocking it like our two-jet protection, which is a slide protection. And Tom would just nod his head. He wouldn't say yes or no. He just, And in reality, we're not blocking it like slide protection. We're blocking like our screen protection. So, for example, if we had a screen call that we were going to, it would be, the number indicated that we would normally, if this was our protection, if we had a strong side dual read with the guard, we would attach screen to that. Well, he's not going to if we're running a weak side screen and it's a certain defensive spacing, he's going to run his screen protection rules. He's not going to dual read. Now, what happens is when nothing happens, no one questions that concept until we put that screen in with a strong side dual read protection, and all of a sudden they bring two from the strong side, and they say, well, wait a minute, isn't the guard dual reading? No, it's screen protection rules, coach. The quarterback knows it. The backs know it. Hey, if they bring two from that side, we just got to get rid of the ball fast. Quarterback knows he's got to get rid of that ball faster. You can't expect, let's say, a backside guard to dual read and then come right back and be a part of the screen. So our screen system is a screen system that is attached to all our protections. But that doesn't mean we're utilizing those screen protections. For example, if we have a slide protection on, we're sliding the weak side, but we're going to have a strong side screen. If that guard is uncovered, he's not going to slide hard down to the nose and then try to release that way. First of all, the nose is just going to run right with him when he releases. So, and the center knows that even though the protection call was a slide weak protection call, he's not going to set like he's blocking a slide weak. He's going to set for our screen protection sets with this play. Did I make myself? Sometimes I don't make myself. Did everybody understand that? So if we had like a weak side screen call and we're going to dual read the guard, if we had that protection, whatever that was, we're not going to dual read the guard. He's just going to pop in there, and he's going to run his technique will be a weak side screen technique rule. The center, okay? Obviously, if we have some sort of an underfront and we're running a strong side screen, we find that the hardest part of this, one of the hardest parts of the screen game is you don't want your releasers, if you had everything perfect, which you don't, you'd rather not have your releasers cross the defensive lineman's face or even have them feel that at all. So, again, if I was the right guard and it was a 3 technique and that guy slanted, if that guard jumped outside and that guy stopped and started running right at the guard. That happened to us in the minicamp with one of our rookies. And you'll see it, I think, in our drill here. And I think it'll be, no, maybe I didn't put it in, but he was supposed to set on the 3 technique, and it was a strong side screen release. Well, he jumped outside. Well, shit, that defensive tackle, he started sprinting out there. I mean, he knew right away that that's not a pass protection technique. He thought it was a reach block, because that's what it looked like. And so, so my point with the center is when he has an underfront, he'd like to set on that nose, and he wants to jam that nose, and he wants that nose to feel, oh, I've got that shoulder. I'm going to go right through his shoulder. And Robbie Tobeck, our center, who's been around a long time, has a great feel, and he will throw that nose. If that nose goes backside, he'll try to jam him just like the guard and extend, but he's also realizes he doesn't want to get his shoulders turned. The worst thing on screens, I think, is when your releasers get their shoulders turned when they try to extend opposite of where they're going. Then you have a problem because they lose sight of the focal area. They get their body in a position where it's hard for them to open up. The timing of the screen gets delayed. They release slower. The back's ready to go. It screws up the timing. So as you coach the technique, if I'm the guard, I don't want to end up with my foot back here and my hips open to the inside, and I've twisted my body. So I think that's what you want to make sure your releasers stay square as they hit, extend, and then release. If you're the offside guard, we have certain rules. We do not release our offside guard into the screen. Now, and that also is everybody does their screens differently, and I'm not saying it's the only way. That's just our philosophy, okay? And what I've learned, and what Tom always used to say, many times the guy that hurts your screen is that if it's under front, you're running a weak side screen. That center, if somebody doesn't get on that backside nose, that nose has a tendency. As soon as that center starts to release, that nose guard just is always in the screen lane. So what we do is we have a rule of thumb for the backside guard. If the backside guard's covered, he's just going to pass protect that 3 technique. He's going to stick on that 3 technique. Okay. If we have an over front and we're screening to the weak side, it's the same thing that I just talked about when you're screening strong with an under front. It's tough on that center when that center, he's got to be a great actor. He really does. And again, you don't want to overcoach the center. Let him feel it. And again, you work your drills. You try to get a nose guard, even if you're working against yourself, you try to get that nose guard in a position where he'll give you a good look. That center has to be a good actor. He's got to hit and really jam that nose. He's got to let that nose feel that he is beating him through the play side shoulder. And he wants to release, obviously, underneath that nose guard. He doesn't want that nose guard to cross his face. If the guy has a game on or if they have a fire zone from that side, then again, what he'll do is that nose will cross his face. He'll jam that nose. When that nose comes across, then he'll release. He doesn't want to get himself turned. If it's an under front, and I'm the backside guard, and we're releasing to the let me just show you here. And I think this is really a good point right here. This under front, and let's say we're releasing here. Well, we tell the backside guard on the snap of the ball, you drop your inside foot to the heel of the center. So, and we want you actually almost to piggyback that center. So I want to get into a position where I can take that nose over. We really coach that. Now, it doesn't matter if it's strong side dual read protection, the title of the protection. That is always, doesn't matter if it's basic protection, doesn't matter if it's slide protection. That's the rule for the backside guard when he's uncovered. When he has a bubble over the backside. And you'll see oftentimes in these film clips, that guard will set to the inside, right to the inside of the right heel of the center, and he'll try to jump that nose guard. He'll really almost latch onto him and grab and get a hold of him, because those damn nose guards, boy, as soon as they sense, at least for us, as soon as he feels that center's releasing, he's either going to try to grab the center or he's really going to disrupt it. As always, we have the hardest time running the screens against our own defense. Then what happens is, and I'm sure you guys will appreciate, well, I can tell when Sean Alexander's running a screen. Okay, you can tell, all right. So then there's a big staff discussion on offense. Well, what are we doing wrong? Well, we're not, our guys see the screens every day. They know in the red zone we're going to screen them. So our guys, there's times where our defensive line will just stand on the line of scrimmage. They won't rush. They're looking for the back. So again, if you get into those discussions, be strong and say, you know what? Okay, we'll try to make the back more cognizant of how he sets. And if there might be some validity to it, really, because as we looked at in last year's, Sean could set differently when he's going to release on the screen. So, I think you do discuss it, but again, don't overcoach it. Don't overcoach it. Okay. The offside tackle. Your rule is your technique is exactly our pass protection technique. Okay, wherever that defensive end is lined up, you're going to utilize your technique. You're not going to change. I think I missed the onside tackle. The one thing about the onside tackle, we do not cut the defensive end on the onside, and the reason we don't at our level, and I think at college, and I think if you did a good job, if you really were looking at screens, we don't cut. We're not really a big cutting team in the pass protection technique aspects of our game. And so those defensive ends, if you start to cut that in, he turns and runs. That's one problem. Number two, we found that when we cut that defensive end, he was in the path of the back. He'd fall down, and the back would trip over him, and then the screen was not very good. So with the onside tackle, we feel like we don't want to cut. We tell him, hey, you don't cut that defensive end. You use your pass protection technique and let him play the game. You know, and I'm speaking of the defensive guy. Let him play the game, and don't give him any edge as to whether we're running the screen. The screening back, as it says here, and again, what we ideally like to do with the screen back is we want to set him on the inside hip of the offensive tackle. Okay, but we want him to be a good actor. Now, again, when we had this discussion last year about the screens, and then our defense in mini camp started saying, our training camp said, well, we can tell. So we went back and watched our backs set. We even got to the point where we wanted to make sure that as we coached them, that back, as he approaches the tackle to the side he's going to release on the screen, we want him to sit on the inside hip of that offensive tackle, and we actually want him to. We don't want him. Sometimes what happens is the back will, as he sets, he'll sit like this, you know, again, or his eyes won't be focused on his blocking assignment. He's just so focused in on the guard. What we like to have him do is he sets to the inside hip of that offensive tackle, and we want him actually to look at his blocking assignment. And even if he doesn't have a blocking assignment, we want him to focal at a backer or a safety so that his eyes are looking, so that those defensive linemen are not seeing his eyes on the guard. He can feel that when that guard or that releaser starts to release. So we tried to really emphasize that with our running back, and I think it was a good coaching point, and it was something we didn't try to overcoach it, but we went back through our fundamentals of, okay, what exactly does that back, how does he look, how does he approach his stance after the ball is snapped, and try to get his eyes on the focal area. Obviously, the backs, this is a problem, and when we looked at all our screens from last year, I think we had about 23 screens called. Our backs, it's tough for that back. You got to really, and I think as a running back coach, and if you talk to your running back, I think that's an area he can practice. You know, is avoiding those people, those defenders. You know, that there's nothing worse than a screen when that back gets knocked over and disrupted. So part of that screen release, when we do get with the backs, we try to get somebody, a defender, in that screen drill that I was talking about, when we just have the line in the backs, not the whole team screen drill, we try to put down bags or something that the back, he'll have to, as he starts to set and the tackle is setting for his outside set on the defensive end, and so that the back doesn't look down at the ground but feels the people around him and yet has a feeling for where that releaser is. I think that's an area that probably is not as coached as hard as it should be. So the back doesn't fall down. So the back, when that end pinches, which we have a clip of that, where that end pitches hard, instead of coming up the field like everybody would like to have that end do, that back now, instead of setting to the inside of the tackle, he's got to slide to the outside hip when that end crashes down hard inside so that he can then release into the screen game. The tight end, the tight end is, he has a role in your screens. And if you're in a personnel grouping that the tight end is on the field and he runs a certain route with a package, like I talked about earlier with the routes, his block becomes very important to the success of the screen. I think, again, that's an area that we can all emphasize more, is as he releases, let's say on some sort of an option route, about a 10-yard option route, when he starts to release and gets to the top of the stem of his option route, it's important for him to understand that, hey, you've got a blocking assignment. So as soon as you get your head around, you find that, and most often times it's that Mike linebacker, and pin that Mike linebacker. Because if you can get him pinned and you release strong side and a strong side screen, then you're now you have to deal with that strong side outside linebacker. That's all you have to deal with as a potential blocking threat. And so I think that's really important. We found that that's been very successful. When our tight end's done a nice job with that, that has really helped our screens. And all of a sudden now we've got one corner, let's say dropping deep, we got an inverted safety, and we got a linebacker, and we got the numbered blockers on it. You're going to see this screen drill that we did in the last mini camp, and it was the first time we instituted the drill, and our receivers weren't quite on the same page, and our line wasn't quite on the same page. And again, this is a drill that we're just going to get better and better as we go along here. And then I'll show you a clip of us throwing the screen in a team period against our defense, and it was so much easier when it became a fast situation. And the defense really ended up in the same position that we would like it to end up. How am I doing? Yeah, the width of the back really is predicated on the tackle set. And so that's a starting point. But I would say more often than not, that back, when he ends up, if he's in a split backfield set, when the ball is snapped, I would say he ends up probably tighter than that in reality. You know, I think that's just a starting point, Bob. But the more important thing is when he starts to release, we want him about a half a yard behind that first releaser. And I would say the throw happens no more than about 3 yards outside of his original alignment where he lined up on the tackle. It happens that quick. That's how quick. We don't let the back get all the way out there and then throw the screen. It happens. If I'm the tackle and there's the back there as I set, as soon as that guard releases, I would say if we do it properly, he's about a half yard. Boy, when the guard starts to release, you'll see right from behind, you'll see the back release, and the back's looking that quickly. And so it really is a quick developing screen. It's not a delayed screen, and we don't want that back too wide out. That kills the play, as you will know. You don't want that back. That's something else. Not only do we screen the backs, but we also screen the wide receivers. Okay, and the wide receiver doesn't have as good a feel for it. You know, you don't want that receiver to start to look and then start to back up and drift. That's not what you want. When that back starts to release, boom, there's the ball right there. That's how fast the screen. The throw is that quickly. We don't have the back start to turn like this and show his numbers to the quarterback. We do not do that. That's not part of the teaching process for the back. He's going to get that catch on the run, and then by that time, like I said, he's going to be 3-4 yards. And depending on where we are if we're on the left hash mark, he's going to get to the numbers or very close to the numbers of the reference point, and then he's going to go downhill down the numbers. Right. Yeah, no, if they twist, what we try to do is, yes, if we get a TE, what we do is that tackle, because of our technique, we can do that. That tackle, that end goes, we just tell them, hey, stay with the end, and we're still going to extend on the 3 technique and with a guard. We're not going to pass it off because we end up being on different levels. But if we don't, let's say we get an ET, that's a pretty hard one for our tackle to know how to react to that. So we tell him, we just try to absorb that end when he starts down hard inside. Just absorb, because we want to make contact with that end behind the guard. We don't want him. That happened in the mini camp as well. Our right tackle, we have a younger right tackle who was at right tackle and in our team period. And what happens, he saw the ET, that end started to pinch. Well, he slammed him hard on the line of scrimmage. Well, hell, that guy ran into the guard releasing and the center releasing, and it screwed up the screen. So there's a feel thing for our older guys have a better feel. Walter Jones or Pork Chop has a better feel for that. But as you set, if you get a hard crashing in, what we'd like to do is just absorb that guy and widen it and escort him across the line of scrimmage. Let him absorb into the backfield and across the line of scrimmage so that he doesn't see the releasers. But that's another aspect. Again, if you start thinking about all the different aspects that can happen when the ball is snapped, I'm talking about how the defense reactions are. That's why I think what I really appreciate with our screen game is we can cover all those aspects, what happens after the ball's snapped. Because we have, it doesn't matter what screen we're running, the rules and the techniques are all the same no matter what the screen is called. Even if we have a wide receiver screen, which we throw as well, it's still the same rules for the releasers and the blockers.
One question.
Sure.
When you release, you tell those guys to run
Okay. Our guys start, I would say this. As they release, as our releases release, the first thing they're very conscious of is that inside linebacker, because you know as well as I do, that's the hardest one. And so as our guys start to release, they'll pick up speed, but I would not say that they're out of control, sprinting right to that reference point, not even conscious of what's going on around them. And again, it goes back to what happens after the ball is snapped. Our guard, when he hits and extends, the first his eyes are looking at that inside linebacker, because that's the guy that stops the play, as you guys well know. That is the guy that stops the screen more than any secondary players, okay? And so as they release, they're very conscious. Whoever's the first releaser, very conscious of that inside linebacker to the play side. And even to the point where I've seen Hutch or Chris Gray, as they start to release, boom, they just get right up on that linebacker. And even though we're downfield, we get away with that. But we get that guy. That guy is the guy I think that's the menace to screens, And so you got to get on. Now, it's getting tougher and tougher, as you well know. Those damn linebackers know that, and so they jump that guy, and sometimes you're trying to peel him off the back at the line of scrimmage. But, and so if I'm the backside releaser, if I'm the center and that guard, then I'm going to run right past that guard. I'm going to run right past that guard and get to the numbers. And so that's my reference point. I'm going to block the next defender from that point to the numbers. So I guess to answer your question, we start to release, I'd say at a moderate speed, only because we're trying to evaluate that point, that right there. And that's a hard. Another thing that's hard. This is really hard. We're releasing strong side. We got a strong side alignment. Let's say we have an over front, right here. Okay, and a lot of people, they're running their game. They got a T nose game. Okay, well. They run the T-nose, and our guard does just what I said. He'll hit and extend, but he'll let that guy cross his face, and then the nose starts to loop over the top, and the center starts to release. There are times where our center will just stay on the nose. He won't get to because that guy is looped right into the screen area, and he'll know. He knows that, hey, I know what my rule is, but I know this guy is more dangerous to the success of the play. And there have been times where we block the nose, haven't blocked the buck backer or the safety. We get the guard out, he blocks the safety, the buck. It doesn't make the play, or tries to make the play, but our back makes a miss. It's not going to be the same every snap, and that's kind of frustrating part for the coordinators and the head coach would like to say, hey, it's going to be a rolled up corner. You go out and block the corner, and you block the inside linebacker. They always say that, but it doesn't happen that way all the time. So. We're going to still keep with the reference point. Everybody's at the reference point will say the same. He'll look, and when he gets to that point, if there's no threat, he'll start down the numbers. If whoever attacks him the soonest, he will block. And so he may end up, if both of them come, you say, okay, I'd like you to block the corner, but again, if he makes that choice to go to the safety and they're both equal, what happens, and Bob, on Monday morning, everybody's saying, well, why didn't he block the corner? Well, shit, the damn kid's running 100 miles an hour. He's trying to make a decision, and, you can't go back in your meeting room and say, you know what, God damn, you got to block that corner. And he said, Coach, I saw both of them, and he made a decision, and I think you don't want to take that away from him. And so I try not to, I get my ass ripped, but I try not to overcoach those guys too much. And here's a better look at it from a standpoint of the field. And we tell that second releaser, now he doesn't necessarily have to get to the numbers if he knows that he is the second releaser out. If he sees let's say the center releases and sees that guard in front of him, then he knows that, hey, I'm going to start to look for a filler coming inside because he's blocking the forced defender. If everything is perfect, if that inside linebacker that I talked to you about didn't force, let's say he's a drop player, now we'll release. But our eyes, both of the center and the guard's eyes are going to be on that inside linebacker when they start to release. That's important. I tell you what, fellas, if you do anything with the screens, emphasize that with your blockers, your releases. Get your eyes on that inside linebacker. Because the back will have a chance. If you have a back, if he gets out to this open space area, he has a chance to make the guy miss. He'll make a guy miss because you're not going to block everybody. But boy, you can't get that damn screen started if you don't take care of that inside linebacker and make sure that one of your releasers gets on that guy if he is a potential threat, okay? If he's a potential threat. And let me see here. See, here's another diagram of our screen. And this is against an over and an under front. And again, we talk about avoid the entanglement. Now, we have the backside guard drawn in here, and most of the times we don't release. Like I said, we don't. We found that releasing the backside guard doesn't help us as much as the protection of it and getting it protected. And letting the quarterback hit his back foot. Now, that's another area. The quarterback's got to be he's got to sell that thing. And Matt does a great job. If we're using a protection, a route package that's a 5-step drop, he'll drop at 5-step. And then he'll retreat back, and then he'll go to the throw. If it's a 7-step drop, he'll drop at 7 steps, and then he'll go. So that's obviously that's another factor that you have to coach, and it's got to be a part of you. Now, I'm going to show you this real quickly, but look at these are all different screens that we've called, and you can see we have different protections, different. Now most of these are in the slide protection category, but we can have that many different types of screens. We don't have them in one game, but we can have 3 of them with different route packages going along here. Bob, how am I doing? Time. Get on. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go to the film. Can I leave this on? I can. Okay. And then where's my? Is this the dial? Where's my clicker? Oh, there we go. Okay. I hope you guys can see this. Okay, now this is, I apologize, I'm on your way here. No. Okay. Did I go forward? Did I go back too far, or what did I do here? Let's see where I'm at. Okay, here we go. Now this is that drill I was telling you about, Paul. We ran it in our mini camp the last time. We actually put different color hats on the linemen, the linebackers, the secondary people, just so we can all recognize. And we're running a weak side screen here. And here again, I don't have a pointer. Is there a pointer up here, Bob? But you'll see the releasers releasing downfield here. This is a couple of our young rookies that we drafted, Chris Spencer from Mississippi and Doug Ninehouse from Oregon State. And they're both releasing down the field. And it's really, it's not what we want. And they have to learn that. And so we used that and taught off it. Again, the left tackle here, he's going to execute. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you. The left tackle, I'd coach his technique, his pass protection technique, and he's going to stay square, and he's just going to. It's just that guy won't be able to tell by his technique, his pass protection technique, that it is a screen at any time. What I would say with Chris Spencer is, Chris, you got to jam that guy hard. That's not going to be good enough. That nose guard's going to realize that is a screen just by your set, okay? So he's going to take that 45-degree in. He's going to jam. Now the guard's going to pop and look at that linebacker right away. And if he can get his inside hand on the nose, that's fine. But what we found with that, we try to, we overcoach it. You say, make it look like what we do when we are executing this protection. But then what ends up happening is he gets his hand on that guy and now slows this guy up, and the guy retreats and finds the screen. So we got away from that. We said, hey, just let the nose guard do his thing. Don't get your hand involved. Get your eyes focused on that backer, because that's the threat for us. Okay, these guys, now, on the run, they got to evaluate what's going on. Again, the drawback to the drill, obviously, is the speed and the reaction time, okay? And what we try to do is, okay, we wanted him to be a filler inside out, and we wanted a force player, but again, we have to coach this drill better, and we will get it better. We'll get it better as we go along. But okay, now, right there, if this occurred, what's occurring here, we don't have a force player. You know, what I would say to those two guys, okay, Jerry, you got to indicate to Chris where you're going right now. And if you turn back on that guy, then Chris will continue out to the numbers, but he's got to look back inside for a defensive filler from the inside out. And he hasn't learned this yet. He's just running to the reference point and say, I'm just going to run down the numbers, you know. So that's all part, I think, where you can really teach and coach the execution of this drill. See, I think Jerry, in my way of thinking, in my opinion, is that he's got to indicate that if he's going to react like this, I'd say, then Jerry, you got to start looking deeper inside for the next defender. But what would be ideal is Jerry says, okay, there's no forced defender here. I'm not seeing a forced defender out here. I'm going to turn right back and block the next inside, and this happens to be the inside linebacker. And so then Chris would continue flat, and he would end up outside of Jerry and run down the numbers. Okay? Okay, we have a shallow cross going on. We make everything look like we're running the shallow cross. Okay? Now, one thing here, we want to make sure that he becomes a blocker, and he is a blocker. We need to coach this guy up better. We want him covering that shallow cross. He's not running fast enough. Okay? And again, there's the problem, child, because the reason, you know, first of all, it's illegal. The pass hasn't been thrown. We're downfield. So we've got to coach that up. The releaser's better. Okay, one thing we found from last year that we don't do very well, and I'm gonna myself, this is my fault, I've got to coach the downfield block of the releasers better. I'm gonna create a drill for them. It's hard because when you get into training camp, you don't want guys diving on the ground. And we do not want to tell those blockers, when you run downfield, don't measure the defender. Coach Holmgren that's another thing, gets a burr up his ass. He just says, what is that guy doing? And it's tell them just to throw, and then let the back. So there's a point where you don't want those guys slowing down. You want them to run through those defenders, and we're gonna work on trying to cut those defenders and roll into them. We're going to use that type of technique. Now, okay, again, the backside players right here. We're just going to coach their pass protection technique. We're not going to. Now this is a little bit. We're not going to change their technique. Now, there's a little bit better there. Now, just what he did there, you can kind of see what he's kind of just driving. What happens, I think, which is great, right there, the momentum of that guy, that pressure of that nose guard on the center, as soon as you just kind of whip him by you, he ends up going right into the ground oftentimes, and you get a good release there. Okay, again, now we're not giving him a great picture, but just because we're trying to coach these young guys up in this drill. And Chris, what I would say with Chris, first of all, and this is something else, his eyes, as soon as his focal point is here on the reference point, if there is not another defense, he's got to start looking back inside as he's running to the reference point. So I think where your eyes and your head are, you can really coach that better. I know I can with my guys, is as you release, don't get your eyes looking at the sideline, get your eyes at the focal point of the block, where you're going to be. So as you're releasing, you're looking, as you're running, you know where the reference point, you have an idea, but get your eye, okay, there's no outside defender, forced defender, there's the next guy, and I see Jerry taking him, so I'm going to still go to the reference point, but now I'm going to go start scanning right back inside to the next defender inside. Now, again, we coach the running back, okay? He's not, right there, he should turn down the numbers. Right now, and that's just, again, an aspect. And you can see, Chris, I said, that's a great job. You had a great, nice run. You just ran right down the field. You can stop over there and talk to our president and all that. But that guy's going to make the tackle. So get your eyes focused and really don't be running downfield empty-handed there. Okay, here's a strong side screen. There's that option route we talk about with the tight end. Now, again, what happens is he doesn't become a blocker. So right there, we're outnumbered strong side. We've got our two releasers. That tight end is critical to the success of the play. Now, on this particular screen, the quarterback does have it's kind of an option screen. He does have the ability to throw the tight end on our screen to the strong side. He can throw to the tight end. Again, this is a little bit ragged because we just introduced the drill and we introduced the screen. But as he runs his option route, that's his blocking assignment right there. So what happens is we get outnumbered, and now we do have a force player here and our guard gets to the force player, and we talk about, okay, you release to the right. If you're blocking the force player, you're going to trap with the right shoulder. You releasers. If you release to the right, you're blocking with the right shoulder, okay? So that we get the proper angle, so that we don't end up, and you'll see it in a couple later clips, where that guard misses that angle on the trap. Now, I would say to Chris, is he more, and this is a young player, as a rookie, he makes that decision to block this guy. I would think our older guy would end up blocking this guy and let that guy run. Okay, again, those are things that on the run that they have to learn. How am I doing? Okay, I'm going to keep going to, I'm going to show you some live stuff here. And okay, this is again, okay, we practice the drill. Now we go and we call it against our own defense. Okay, in a snap, in a team period. Okay, this guy sniffed it out. Okay, Marcus Tubbs, I believe. Might be the 3 technique. Okay, what happened? Okay, here it is. Here's a good picture. The guy slants. Okay, first of all, I would say to the left guard, Jerry Wunsch, Jerry, you took a poor pass set on this guy. You took a very poor pass. That's not our pass set. We want to take a set that we use our technique. And what we should do is, instead of stepping that tight, he should have stepped with his inside foot right to there. And his second step, he should have collisioned this guy. And not, again, there's a fine point. You don't want to stop his momentum, but you've got a collision, because as soon as he got by that guy that fast, he stopped. Also, our center, our backside guard has to be better at taking over that guy, which he is trying to do here. Now, again, I believe this is Marcus Tubbs. He has a good feel for what we're doing with the screen, so he sniffs that out pretty damn good. And Jerry, here's again, Jerry, God bless his soul, he knows the problem here. He sees the problem back, and if he turned back to what he's doing here, then and blocked that guy, then what could and very does possibly happen is Chris Gray then just continues, and he becomes a releaser. Even though his rule is that he's not supposed to release in the screen, Chris Gray understands that Jerry got used up on his man, so he's going to replace Jerry. So we do have, again, there's some flexibility in there as we run these screens. It's not a steadfast rule all the time. Okay. Now, everything was perfect, and then Coach Holmgren got pissed because we ended up double teaming. Okay, and you'll see this. Okay, right there. That's pretty good timing right there. And again, here's a clip of the guard. See, he jammed that 3 technique. That guy slanted. Well, he's down on the ground. He's out of the play. And this guy here, it would have been a factor if we released that guard, because just how fast he got up the field. But you can see the timing of it. Hit, extend, release. Okay? Now, right here. Okay? I don't fault Chris Gray, our right guard, because I just got through telling you that guy is always a problem for us. So Chris is really aware of him, that inside linebacker. So his eyes get focused there right now. And Robbie's got to sense that between the two of them. They just got to do a better job, and we will as we keep practicing. And if Chris takes him over, okay, then Robbie can keep going. But that guy was kind of in that gray area. Robbie didn't know if Chris could get him, and we ended up double teaming. And then the head coach, gets pissed. But there he is trying to get down the numbers, and does a nice job of that. And we got all our block. You can see the course right there. We're going to have a play here. Now, this receiver did not do a great job of his blocking assignment. We lost him, and that caused us another problem as well. Okay. Here we are in the red zone. Okay. Again, we're going to release the screen. Here's the screen I was talking about. The option, the quarterback has the option to look at the tight end. I would say that Hutch needs to jam this guy a little bit more just to give the quarterback a chance. But again, he's so conscious of looking for that guy right there. That's the guy that's the killer guy right there, and he's worried about now. Here's a good point, Bob. You were talking about, where does he release? The one thing we would say is that Sean really needs to be a better actor here. He needs to be a better actor. But Hutch, Steve Hutchison, is so concerned about this guy that's why he gets released. Now here's another problem. Okay, that end has got an inside charge. He's playing inside arm free, and he's got an inside charge. They're pinching. Hutch does a good job of not getting tangled up and just getting out. Okay, getting out in the screen, that's another thing. Don't get hung up. That's why it's hit, extend, and go. If that would have been a 3-count screen, he'd have never gotten out. We'd have never gotten the play. Okay, here's a blitzing backer coming in. We got a blitz. Okay, again, we're throwing a route right there. The quarterback knows he's got an open void area right over the middle. We're still going to release in the screen. He has the option to throw that ball in there. Okay, here's another situation. The backers are coming. Okay, both inside backers are dogging. So Hutch needs to jam him, which he does. Probably not as good a jam as you'd like. The problem here now is they're looping the nose right in there. So Robbie Tobeck sees that situation. He said, "I got to block this guy." And we say that if you have a guy that's in the area, there's the more dangerous guy. Now he actually grabs people as they always do, and the defensive guys bitch about us holding, and it's a two-way street, I think. Okay. All right, down the numbers. Now, again, I would say, again, this is a tough thing. But these two guys have to evaluate. You'd like to say that Hutch now works it and stays on the force player, and Robbie starts working down, but it ends up okay. And I don't try to overcoach those guys. That hey, you made the wrong decision. This is a tough deal for those guys. They got to evaluate, and so we just say, hey, we don't want to double team. Let's try not to double team, and get what we can out of the play. We do it backed up. Coach will call it. He feels that good about our screen game. Now this one, again, it ends up okay. And we were just talking about this last night. These guys the officials are going to look for guys coming back. But okay, he gets to the close to the reference point. He's got this is Floyd, and he's going downfield a little too fast. If he'd have stretched his release a little bit longer, he'd had a better angle on the block. He'd had a better, but he started drifting downfield again, and that guy crossed his face. Okay, this is another personnel grouping. This is 3 wide receivers in a back. Now we're running strong side, okay? I would coach him. You can't start fading your release here. You can see he's fading his release right there. Stay on the numbers. Don't get outside the numbers. See, we lose him because of where he ended up on his reference point, outside the reference point. Okay, that's Jerry Wunsch there. I would say your technique is really not what we want. Okay, but here again, the nose is going backside. The center is going to jam him and then release. Okay, now this particular center or this particular snap, he was a little bit concerned about releasing. But our timing, I think, was pretty good there. Okay, that's it. Questions, guys? Questions? Yes, sir. Of the guard? To combat that, if the guard has a bubble over him and that end is going to crash hard down inside, I tell that guard, you set into the line of scrimmage to try to avoid that problem. So you don't get, same for the center. Set into the line of scrimmage as you set. So if you do get that hard pinch, there's enough space where that tackle can wheel him all the way across the formation. I think that helped. Yes, is there somebody else? Yes, sir. Yes, Pete. When in practice, we'll do it. Yeah, it's really I would say the middle part of practice. We work that drill. We have group periods in the middle part of the practice, and then that one against our defense. That was a team period at the end, and we don't tell. Our defense doesn't want to know when we're running screens, but the drill part of it. If it's just backs and offensive line, it'll be in an individual period. If it's a team period, it'll be receivers, everybody. Then we'll do it in a group period situation, and we'll spend 10 minutes on it, and we'll just we'll just boom. We'll go back and forth. We have cards. We're going back and forth to different screens. Yes? Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's an area that, I'm trying to figure that out right now after our meeting on Wednesday. The one thing I would coach those releasers is when you go downhill at your target, you know, you're thinking of blocking. I'm speaking of the block. The guy has the force, thinking that you're going to strike him with if I'm going right with the right shoulder. But as you measure that guy, you're going to have to go in. If we're going to cut that guy, which I would like to encourage, we're going to go right at him and run full speed. We're going to make him, and then we're going to throw and cut and roll, okay? And that's kind of what I'm thinking. We're going to lean toward. Again, how we practice it. You know, the health of our guys is really important, and landing on the ground. I may use I'm thinking about using a crash pad where they don't have to land on the ground all the time. You know, because we don't get that many reps. It's a long season, and I don't want them. You know, now you guys, you know, it's different for you guys. You know what I'm saying? But I think you create a place where the guy can throw and land on the ground without, you know, getting knocked around so much. We try to save their health for the games, but I want a target that can move. You know, I'm thinking about one of those pop-up bags, and so and utilize a pop-up bag and try to utilize that technique.
All right, guys. Now, Billy, up here.